Is it possible to pay your tuition fee from your part-time job in the UK as an international student? You're going to be realistic about tuition fees, part-time jobs, and how possible is it for international students to work in the UK and pay back their tuition fee. It is common knowledge that before you apply for visas or before you even get to the UK to study, you would have your tuition balance, complete tuition balance, and your living expenses for the period of time you'll be studying in the UK all in your bank account. So you'll already have it in your account before you even apply for visa. Sometimes unexpected things always happen. Okay, we have unplanned expenses that happen. Think about it. You're just relocating to this country, and 70% of the time students do not already have an accommodation that they are going to stay. Most times we hope to stay in Airbnbs and then search for apartments from there. You understand? And you don't really factor in how much you're planning to spend or how long you're going to stay in an Airbnb before you finally secure an apartment. You understand? You don't even know how far away from your school the apartment is going to be. So most times all these things come in as unexpected expenses that we do and take a chunk of the savings that we've already made, like living expenses and the tuition balance that we've already had saved. You understand? And then we hope that we are going to get a part-time job and work part-time and then pay back this tuition balance. And I'm here to tell you if it is feasible or not. Okay, so we are going to dissect it together. We're going to do the calculations together, and then you are going to see with me if this is actually a possibility for prospective students to think about. So as an international student in the UK, your student visa limits you to minimum of 20 hours per week during term time. So when you do get a part-time job, you're only limited to work 20 hours per week, and that is during term time. Now, during official university holidays, you're allowed to work full-time. And you can work up to 40 hours or more depending on how much you can do, and also depending on your employer. So this means that your earnings are capped by law. Even if you want to work more than 20 hours per week, you can't, because your employers already know this. And when you're applying for a part-time job, you're applying with your student ID. So they already know how many hours is allocated to students to work. So you can't legally work above the stipulated time during term time. So let's talk about money. How much can you earn as a student working part-time, working 20 hours per week? How much can you earn? So let's assume you're earning the UK minimum wage for 21 and above, which is £11.44 per hour in 2025. So if you're working during term time, we are going to use the minimum wage to do this calculation. So during term time, you're earning £11.44 per hour and you're working 20 hours per week. So that is going to bring your weekly earnings to £228 per week. So you're earning £228 and 80 pence. That is your weekly income. That is if you work complete 20 hours every week. In a month, you're earning £915 per month, and then let's assume that you work every single week during term time, okay, and you complete 20 hours per week every single time you work. You're getting your complete 20 hours and you're working every single week. So that's going to bring your total earnings during term time to £9,152 per year. That is for 40 academic weeks. Okay, so if you're working for the full 1 year and you're working every single week, and every single time you work during the week you have your complete 20 hours, at the end of 40 academic weeks you'll be earning £9,152 per year. Now let's include holiday period. Okay, so during the holidays you're allowed to work full-time, and then you can work up to 40 hours per week, as I said initially. So let's do the calculations as well. The holiday period during a full academic year is 12 weeks. Okay, so you work for the whole 12 weeks and then you're working full-time, and let's assume you're working 40 hours per those holiday weeks. So what you'll be earning at the end of your holiday period, what you would have earned for yourself, is going to be £5,491. Okay, when you're done working full time during the holiday period, you're going to be going home with £5,491. Okay, now best case scenario, your total earnings for the year during term time and during holiday season is going to roughly come to £14,643. Okay, so you worked 20 hours per week during the entire academic period, and then you worked 40 hours per week during the entire holiday period. What you'll be getting after after all this is going to 14,643 pounds. Okay, so it sounds big, right? Wow, that is a lot of money that a student can make in a year. But let's talk tuition balance. Let's talk expenses that students make. So how much do you think is going to be your expenses from this money? Okay, so let's now, before we go into tuition balance, let's start from housing. Okay, let's start from accommodation. So for student accommodation, is you're likely going to see an accommodation that goes for 400 pounds and 450 pounds, sometimes, most times, bills inclusive. So when you pay 450 pounds, you're paying this money, and this covers your bills in the house every single month. Okay, so let's leave it at 400 pounds every month. Annual house rent is going to go to 4,800 pounds. And then let's go to food and groceries, and let's say annually this is going to roughly cost about 1,800 pounds. Yes, annually, or monthly, 150 pounds. If it's possible, yes, it could be possible that your monthly expense for food and groceries is going to be 150 pounds. Now, transport, in as much as you could get rail cards, in as much as you could get discounts, at the end of the day, you would still pay roughly 50 pounds per month. Yes, because you're not just paying this transport to school alone, you're going to work as well. And then annually, your transportation comes up to 600 pounds. You're paying phone bill as well, right? Because you're making calls, you're going to go on the internet and the rest of the things. So let's say monthly you're spending 30 pounds on your phone and the internet bills, and then annually you're paying 360 pounds for your phone bills and internet. And then you also have miscellaneous. Okay, there's some things you don't plan for. You just want to shop online, just want to buy some necessities like winter jackets, because obviously when you're coming in, depending on the season or the weather, when you're coming, you will need to buy some supplies for your house, for yourself. You understand? Because you will not just get an apartment and then you sleep on the floor. You're going to get things in the home. If the apartment comes unfurnished, you will have to furnish the apartment to bring it up to your living standard. Okay, so you don't, even if you don't do too much, you're going to have a haircut and all those things. If you're male, you're female, you're going to have to take care of your hair and the rest of the things. And even if you don't want to do it out there, you're going to buy the materials to do them yourself. So all these things are still categorized under miscellaneous. So let's say miscellaneous, at the end of the month, you're spending, let's say 60 pounds. You're spending 60 pounds for miscellaneous every month. And then annually, your miscellaneous bills is going to come up to around 720 pounds. So all these expenses that I have mentioned, now this excludes tuition balance. Okay, this is basically living expenses. Okay, so all this is roughly around 9,000 pounds. Remember, how much were you earning? How much was your earnings after your part-time and full-time work? How much was your earnings? Your earnings was 14,643 pounds, right? You're deducting 9,000 pounds from 14,643. So how much is left for you? Now let's talk tuition balance. Okay, your tuition fee might be 14,000 pounds, and then you paid a deposit of, let's say, 8,000 pounds, and you're left with 7,000 pounds to pay. Okay, you're left with 7,000 pounds to pay. Now, do you think, after all the calculations that we've made, now all these are rough estimates, after the calculations that we've made, do you think it's possible for you to get 7,000 pounds of your tuition balance to pay from your earnings? Is it possible? If you think it's possible, then fine. Now, this video is not to discourage anybody. It's just for us to be realistic. I'm trying to be realistic because I'm making this video because I've had so many opinions, and most times people leave comments like, no matter what the tuition is, I'm sure when I get there, I'm going to get a job, and then I'm going to pay it back. And then you see someone going for a school that is 20,000 pounds, 18,000 pounds, and the initial deposit is around 3,000, 4,000. And yes, that is good. Okay, initial deposit that is quite low is fine. But what happens to the rest? What happens to the tuition balance of £16,000. Now, if you're going for a school that is 20,000 and above, I don't know why you would go for that school. But if at the end of the day you apply for that school and your initial deposit is around 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 pounds, and then you have 16,000 pounds to pay as tuition balance, you have 14,000 pounds to pay, even 10,000 pounds to pay as tuition balance. Do you think it's possible for you to work part-time after all the calculations that we've made, and then you pay back this tuition within a year? Do you think it's possible? I don't think it's possible. It is not possible. I don't want people to come in with wrong mindset, or maybe you're thinking that when people say things online, they're not trying to discourage you and the rest of the things. No, it's best you get enlightened, know what you're walking into first, so you don't walk into a trap. So what's the reality? What can you actually cover with your part-time job? You can cover rent, cover food, you can cover your phone, internet, transport. It is also fair, it is also good for you to understand that it's not the minute you step into the country that you get a part-time job. Getting a part-time job can be very, very difficult. I'm telling you the truth. Getting a part-time job can be very, very difficult. I've been there. You understand? I have been there. I understand the struggles of getting a part-time job. Most times, employers don't want to employ people that are working 20 hours because they don't have the vacancies for part-time opportunities. They don't, and you don't blame them. Okay, so you're only limited to companies that are looking for part-time employees, and then you apply to those companies, and most times you're not even successful after so many applications. It happens. You understand? So when you're coming in with the intention or with the mindset that you're going to work part-time and then pay back your tuition balance, what happens when you don't get a job after 2 months, after 3 months? What happens? So what you cannot reliably cover with your part-time job is your tuition balance. Okay, your tuition balance. Your tuition balance cannot be reliably covered through your part-time job or by your part-time job, especially if you still have a balance of over £5,000. It is almost impossible to work part-time and cover your tuition balance. It is almost an impossibility. And even if you try to save every single penny that you're making for tuition, what happens to all those other bills? If you insist that you're going to save every single penny that you work for your tuition balance, how about the other ones? How about the other aspects of the bills that you're supposed to sort? Okay, so what's my real advice for students or people that are hoping to come into the country to study? What's the real advice I'm going to give you? First of all, if you've spent a chunk of your proof of funds, your tuition balance or your living expenses, it's fine, it happens. Okay, as I said earlier, we have unexpected unplanned emergencies that come up. Yeah, you're not alone. Don't feel bad about it. Okay, but what do you do after this episode, after this scenario where you've dipped your hands into your savings and then you've spent a part of your savings? What do you do in this period? First of all, you can talk to your university about tuition installments. Okay, talk to your school about tuition installments. Some schools do not have repayment plans in check, and it is always not beneficial to students. You understand? Because it is not always easy to have like a whole 50% of your tuition fee and then you pay it at once, or you have the entire balance to pay at once. It's not always so easy, especially when you've done unplanned spending or you have emergencies that came up and you had to spend from your savings. You understand? I am being realistic. It happens to almost everybody. Also, look inward for jobs. Don't just depend on outside for jobs. Look inward. Look into your school for jobs within your school. They have library assistant jobs, ambassador roles like the one I did. They have blue collar job opportunities. They can have vacancies in the cafe. They can have vacancies in the cleaning department and the rest of it. So look inward. Now also, you can also consider remote or freelance jobs. These are not also easy to get because you will have to have a certain level of experience, but then people do get these jobs. Okay, so consider it. But first of all, make sure you're always checking with your visa restrictions first before you apply to any kind of jobs. So to be clear, part-time work can help you survive in the UK as a student, but it can't replace proper tuition planning. So don't have the notion that no matter how expensive a school is, I'm going to still apply to that school and I'll work part-time, I'll get a part-time job and I will pay back my tuition balance like through the part-time job. It's not always like that. Okay, it's always easier said than done. If I tell you how many job rejections I got, if I tell you how many unfortunately I got when I was applying for a part-time job, I got a lot of unfortunately that at a point I even stopped applying. You understand? So I was actually looking for a job outside school that I could have contracted hours with, and then I could be sure that, oh, this is how many hours I work every week. But then I got a lot of rejections. Now, first of all, it was because of my peculiar situation, because I have children. So my situation was a bit peculiar. But then again, the amount of unfortunately that hits me from left, right, center, sometimes four unfortunately emails in a day, it will just throw you off balance, because most times you've already seen yourself doing that job and the rest of it. But it doesn't always work like that. Most times it's always so easy to say these things and imagine these things, but then it's so difficult for them to actually come to fruition, because this is reality. So be honest with yourself, okay? Be very, very honest and realistic with yourself. So this is where I'm going to draw the curtain on this video. I just decided to create a particular video to talk about this, because this is what people will really need to hear. This is what prospective students really need to understand, that yes, although it's possible that a person can actually use a chunk of the savings that they had before they came into the country. Now, these savings, including your living expenses and your tuition balance, it's possible to use it up, okay, or to use a part of it, hoping to work and then replace that money. But most times it doesn't go that way, because even the process of getting a part-time job is always a stress. So please budget yourself wisely, and try ask questions when you need to ask questions. If it's possible for you to get a house before you relocate to the UK, then fine, if it is possible. But if it's not, then you have to prepare your mind that as long as you stay in an Airbnb, you're going to be coughing out a good chunk of money. So plan yourself properly, and I'll see you all in my next video. Subscribe to the channel. Bye.